Good afternoon, dear audience, and shortly I'm Ilze Paklone, co-founder of Studio Wasabi, which attempts to operate somewhere in real time in Riga and at virtual time and manner between Tokyo, Riga and Mexico City. Beyond that, I've been also a researcher, and I am a researcher, and at this moment working together also with anthropologist Viestur Celmiņš, and also partly with Riga Planning Region for the project, which is a part of a larger project, Live Baltic Campus. So already for quite a while, for a year, we've been researching and prototyping campuses which could potentially benefit for the development of the left bank of Daugava. And before continuing, I also would like to say very special thanks to our students from Riseba University, who have been working hardly on prototyping and experimenting with university campuses for almost a year. So, to give a little bit of a context of the research about campus potential development in Riga, and particularly in the left bank of the river Daugava, if we look very quickly at the map of Riga, we can obviously see that I marked down the historical center of Riga, its protection zone. And on the left side, there is a territory which, of course, asks and is today's topic of development. And it's actually almost the same size as we can see the historical center of Riga, just for a reference of scale to understand what kind of a vast territory we are actually dealing with. To take a little bit of a closer look at the left side of Daugava, where we actually are at the moment, and to look at the university infrastructure, what we can see that we have marked down also the approximate 10 to 15 minute walking distance from each university: Riga Technical University, University of Latvia, Riseba University and Stradiņš University. And again, in total, approximately it's 1 square kilometer, and it would be, again for a reference, 3 to 4 traditional blocks of Riga in the city center. So it gives already a hint of a potential development directions. Either it's a dense infrastructure of the city center, or it can move to an entire different development direction, as could be seen from the examples of the colleagues before. It can be a monofunctional territory in the city as well. Looking at the examples here, we could observe that there's a multiplicity already of typologies in the city itself. Here, Riga Technical University, example of typical post-war modernism planning. Riseba University, which is a relatively small private university within the post-industrial territory. Stradiņš University, which again is separate buildings in the territory related to large-scale neighborhood development. And the vast field of University of Latvia, which is one of the territories relatively empty at this moment, but in the following years until 2030, most of the university infrastructure would move to this side of the river, which means in total, with all the other universities presented on this area, it means almost 10,000 people more actually in the area. So it actually puts forward a lot of questions about development of this area. A bit of a closer look. And if in the previous speakers' presentations we could see a closer look to the typologies of the university campuses in different countries, then what we have been looking in our research with a particular emphasis was on organizational issues behind all the campuses, whether it's a private or public, whether it's in the city center and part of the city's center's infrastructure, or it's part of the, so to say, outskirts city development campus. And again, just to go back a little bit to the situation in Riga before continuing with several examples of case studies abroad, we were taking a look at the existing programs very shortly. There are already connections between universities, programs that are similar and programs that are joint. For example, there are 2 similar programs in the 4 universities. In Pardaugava, there are programs that are similar in 3 universities. There are programs that are similar in 2 universities, like mostly in Riga Technical University and University of Latvia. There are many programs that are similar in Stradins University and University of Latvia, some in Riseba and some in University of Latvia. Some are present only in Technical University or University of Latvia. So, in essence, probably there is little problem in software. Those programs are related to the national plan and national priorities of science development. The other thing we were looking at in the research is the planning documents, as they provide the necessary possibilities for the territory to develop. For instance, the fragment from the strategy of Riga 2030, it provides a short glimpse of priority territories development and in the city. Interestingly, in between the universities, the territory is marked as potential revitalization of the living quarters. Perhaps we could say that this territory, if we can potentially mark it down as territory of knowledge and innovation, this may require another approach. The same, actually, we can say, looking at the territorial plan of Riga, which is valid until 2018, and also the quick looks at the following one. Also, we could say that perhaps revision on the planning and zoning would need to take part to enhance the knowledge territory of the campuses over here. So, actually, hardware, software situations, we can still take a look and manage within our city by itself. What we were really interested, what are the processes behind really building a campus, and what are the processes behind planning documents and the actions that actually follow afterwards. So, organizational patterns stemming from several examples that we have been taking a look. So these are 5 universities which we found interesting for several topics, which could be beneficial to take a look at as an organizational pattern. So there is the ETH in Zurich, there is 2 universities in the Netherlands, and also University of Copenhagen and the University of Lancaster, each stemming with a little bit of different topic. The first university we'll take a look is ETH Zurich, and also already our colleague Mr. Werner was mentioning the campus of Hongerberg, and also saying that design is about organization, and really the success of these campuses have been organizational patterns behind it. So University of Zurich and University of ETH and several other institutions had joined their forces to create what is termed in the master plan as knowledge territory or knowledge quarter in the city of Zurich. Beyond the fact that ETH is also developing the campus at the outskirts of the city, which is typologically it's closer to the idea of the isolated archipelago in the city. So interestingly, the organization behind the knowledge territory in the city, it involves several institutions. There are 2 universities involved, University Hospital and the federal government. So in success, there have been many projects carried out in terms of joint development of a master plan and a campus within the city. The takeaway from ETH Zurich probably is the close and long-term relationship between several institutions working together and achieving the goals of a city's infrastructure. The second example we took a look, and it's interesting and also close to the next example of the campus in Eindhoven. Its development of a campus is explicitly related to the regional development. So although much of the infrastructure of University of Copenhagen is in the existing infrastructure of the city, there are institutions that are being developed outskirts of the city and as well to enhance the Copenhagen, Öresund and Malmö region. And again, it's a very careful, long-term development between several institutions to carry out the typologies of the campuses, and moreover, to emphasize the connection between business, knowledge, and innovation. Several examples of the involved parties, which are not only university but business partners beyond the city of Copenhagen. Several examples of the projects that have been carried out, and due to the lack of time, I wouldn't go in detail. The next example, which was already shown today, is the example in Eindhoven. And again, this has been a perfect collaboration between and the success of planning documents and planning institutions. So there is a succession between national planning, regional planning, and the master plan in Eindhoven. The campus in Eindhoven has been in general positioned within a larger framework or branding called Brainport. So it's explicitly related to regional development, which is interesting. And in fact, it also offers several typologies of the campus itself beyond its architecture. So there can be a private campus. There is also campuses that can be developed as a property of a municipality, or which can be also interesting in the case of Riga, the universities that are developed in relation to the post-industrial territories, which could be, again, stressing it out, interesting to redevelop several areas around the railways in Riga. The University of Amsterdam, which was also already mentioned today, interestingly, and again, similarly to Eindhoven and perhaps also to Zurich, as well as Copenhagen, these are institutions that have 2 typologies actually in the city. They are first embedded in the city infrastructure. Second, the example that our colleague Mr. Werner was showing, it's a science park, a little bit outside of a city center. But interestingly, again, the examples of the university institutions in the city, they confirm that they would like to stay small, but rather to create a virtual network to operate. For instance, Academy van Balkons, the Film Academy, they are small institutions which want to stay small, but rather to emphasize being in the city's infrastructure and being just a part of a platform, of organizing platform. So actually what they would suggest, and again to stress out that there is no perfect recipe for a perfect campus. Looking at the example of Amsterdam, they would say, first create the city, first create the infrastructure, and do not work only with monofunctional campuses in the city, which would operate as enclosed islands. The last example that we were taking a look, because particularly since 10,000 people would move to this area in the following years, was a question of the residences and revitalization of the residential quarters in this side of the river. So the universities that provided, let's say, the most interesting model of how to organize the living and residences and how to integrate it in the city's infrastructure was the University of Lancaster. And again, it has been a very, very careful work together with cities' institutions, business infrastructure, as well as creating non-governmental and private organizations to provide and to develop a long-term plan for residences in the campus and outside the campus. So again, from this example, the idea that is stemming is that there has to be private and public partnership. There has to be partnership between the city development and the university as well. So very shortly, since my time is also running out, just the lessons to take away from the case studies that we've been taking a look is there has to be coordination between the involved institutions. There has to be coordination between the planning documents and between the actions, which is, of course, which has been difficult in all the cases. It's dealing with uncertainty, and it's dealing with in the situation where the economy can change as fast as the infrastructure can't follow. So the idea is to plan in the situations that the infrastructure can be adapted to the new uses. For instance, if the campus is monofunctional, then probably, perhaps, it can't be adapted to the new programs that might be stemming from a moving target situations in the uncertain economies. Other thing is framework of communities, framework of business people, innovation, as could be seen in the example of Copenhagen and Malmö, and also in the case of Eindhoven. Moreover, the importance of a regional development as an incubator for the innovation and knowledge. Thank you.